how does a young prince, in just a little over a decade, completely redraw the map of the ancient world? Well, today we are jumping right into the incredible, almost unbelievable story of one of history's greatest military minds, Alexander the Great. We're going to go from a boy who, frankly, understood animals better than people to the ruler of the largest empire of his time. All right, let's get into this.
So the story really kicks off with what sounds like a prophecy, right? These were the words of Alexander's own father, King Philip. And he said this not after some great victory, but just in sheer awe of his young son's unique genius. I mean, imagine being that boy and hearing that from your father. It wasn't just praise, it was like he was declaring a destiny, laying down a challenge that would literally change the course of history. So where does a world-conquering ambition like that even begin? For Alexander, it was really forged in two key moments from his youth. These moments showed the mind of a future king long before he ever actually wore a crown.
Okay, so take this famous story. A ferocious horse, Bucephalus, is brought to the court. And this thing is so wild, the most experienced riders can't get near it. But 12-year-old Alexander, he notices something everyone else missed. The horse wasn't just being vicious, it was terrified of its own shadow. So he just calmly turns the horse to face the sun, so its shadow disappears behind it, and just like that, the untamable beast was his. You see, this wasn't about strength, it was all about perspective. Then, from age 13 to 16, Alexander's mind was sharpened by, just the greatest thinker of the age, Aristotle. And this wasn't your average education. No, this was a masterclass in how to be a leader. The logic he learned, that would help him solve impossible problems on the battlefield. The philosophy, that would shape how he governed the people he conquered. And the science fueled his curiosity about all the new lands he'd see. This was the foundation that an empire would be built on.
And this quote just brilliantly shows the impact of that education. I mean, these words from Aristotle, they were way more than a lesson, they were a spark. They completely reframed Alexander's whole destiny. He wasn't just going to inherit a kingdom. No, he was meant to fundamentally reshape the world, to be the hand that would draw completely new lines on the map.
But ambition, no matter how big it is, it always gets tested by a crisis. And for Alexander, that test came suddenly, and it came violently, forcing him out of the role of a student and into the role of a king, fighting for his own survival.
Can you imagine it? You're just 20 years old, your father, the king, is murdered, and bam, the kingdom is yours. But it's a kingdom on the very edge of collapse. You've got rivals circling in your own court, and cities that were once loyal are starting to whisper about rebellion because they figure, hey, a boy is in charge now. Honestly, most people expected the whole kingdom of Macedon to just shatter. But Alexander didn't hesitate for a second. When the powerful city of Thebes decided to rebel, he acted with just shocking speed and brutality. He didn't just defeat their army, he razed the entire city to the ground. This wasn't just an act of war. It was a cold, calculated message to the entire Greek world. The age of Alexander has begun, and disloyalty will not be tolerated.
So, with his home base totally locked down, Alexander turned his eyes to the east, towards the ultimate prize, the one challenge that would define his legend, the vast, wealthy, and seemingly invincible Persian Empire.
And just look at these odds. It's the classic David versus Goliath story. On one side, you have a small but battle-hardened Macedonian army. On the other, the superpower of the day with what seemed like limitless money and manpower. I mean, on paper, this should have been a very, very short war. But at their first major showdown, the Battle of Issus, Alexander didn't just outfight the Persians, he completely outthought them. His crazy, daring cavalry charge was like a lightning strike. It just broke the lines and went straight for the Persian king himself, Darius third. Faced with this direct assault, Darius, he panicked. He turned his chariot around and fled the battlefield, leaving his own family behind to be captured. And here, right here, we see a completely different side of Alexander. He could have treated the royal family as prizes of war, but instead, he treated them with the absolute highest honor, promising Darius's mother that he would respect her as if she were his own mother, as a queen. This act of chivalry, it just stunned his enemies and showed that he saw himself as a rightful king, not some barbarian conqueror. So the campaign finally ends when Darius, who had fled yet another battle, was murdered by his own treacherous commanders. When Alexander found his body, he didn't celebrate, he was actually saddened. He covered the body with his own cloak, hunted down the assassins, and gave his fallen enemy a full royal burial.
With that act of respect, he wasn't just a conqueror anymore. He was now the undisputed king of Asia.
But conquering the largest empire on Earth? Well, that wasn't enough. Not for Alexander. His ambition just kept pushing him further, beyond the edges of the map, into the ancient lands of Egypt and the mysterious territories of India. In Egypt, he wasn't even seen as a conqueror. They saw him as a liberator who freed them from Persian rule. They actually crowned him pharaoh. And it's here that he did one of his most lasting things. He founded the city of Alexandria. This wasn't just another military fort. He envisioned it as a global hub for learning, a true melting pot where Greek and Eastern cultures could mix and create something new. So he keeps pushing east into modern-day Pakistan and India, and there he meets his toughest opponent yet, King Porus. This guy commanded a powerful, loyal army, and he had a secret weapon that Alexander's forces had never seen before, an intimidating corps of war elephants that could just smash through enemy lines like they were nothing. After a brutal, hard-fought battle, Porus was defeated and brought before Alexander. Alexander asks him, "How do you want to be treated?" And Porus, wounded but still full of pride, gives this legendary reply. It just showed incredible courage and dignity, even in total defeat. Alexander was so blown away by this guy's guts that he did something truly remarkable. He didn't just free Porus. He gave him his kingdom back, plus more territory, and made him a key ally. It just goes to show you Alexander valued strength of character just as much as he valued winning on the battlefield. So he had stretched his empire all the way from Greece to India, creating a legacy that really did seem immortal. But even the greatest conqueror in the world can't outrun his own fate. Just take a look at this timeline. The sheer pace of his life it's breathtaking. In only 12 years, he went from being a young king of a tiny nation to the master of the known world. It's a sprint through history that has never, ever been matched. But even Alexander had his limits. On the banks of a river in India, his insane ambition finally hit a wall it couldn't break. And it wasn't an enemy army, it was his own men. After years of constant marching and fighting, they were just done. They were exhausted, they refused to go one step further. And for the very first time, Alexander the Great was forced to turn back. On the long journey home, in the city of Babylon, Alexander fell ill with some kind of mysterious fever. And at just 32 years old, the man who had conquered the world was finally defeated by something he couldn't fight. His journey was over. His empire pretty much fractured into pieces right after he died. And yet, the Greek culture and the ideas he spread shaped civilizations for centuries. So it leaves us with one last question to think about. Was Alexander's greatest legacy the huge amount of territory he won with his sword? Or was it the cities he built and the brand new, interconnected world he imagined?